which they made Brendan Fraser racist in this movie. That is a
They did.
step too
I know
far.
that's a
I
sin.
can't I can't abide by that. That is ugh, cardinal
um,
sin. Welcome back to the Great American Movie Review, where we review great American movies.
my name is Mikiah.
And I'm Kyle. This is a movie of the week style podcast where we take turns picking films. We talk about their context and quality. This week I've selected, begrudgingly, the 2005 Best Picture winner, Crash. Um, Crash was made in 2003, premiered in 2004, was released in 2005, and was the best picture, apparently, of the 2006 Academy Awards. It's probably the most, I'd argue it's definitely one of the most controversial picks from the Academy Awards, and definitely the most of the recent 2 decades, I'd say. Um, it it is one of the lowest grossing Best Picture winners, but it's also one of the lowest budgeted films at $6.5 million budget at the time and $98 million gross, which is quite a return on investment for whatever. I think it's Lionsgate studio that made
Yeah,
this.
Lionsgate bought it after it premiered, so they didn't produce it, and it's like it was produced independently, but then bought by Lionsgate.
Probably not for that much, if I had to imagine. So yeah,
Oh, I
quite
mean, for a
quite the
movie
return
that
on
small,
investment.
right? Yeah. Kyle, I got a question for you.
Yeah, gosh, shoot.
Why did you make me watch this movie?
Because I thought we would have quite a bit of fun. I mean, look, we had quite a string of good movies. We had Darkman, which we disagree about, but a lot of people do like, and so I wanted to pick a I mean, consensus. It won 3 Academy Awards. This is up there. Come on, it's a good movie. Calm down. It's not a good
I
movie.
I I beg to differ in this case.
No, I wanted to pick something that I know that I had like a 99% chance that you, or 99% sure that you would not enjoy this movie and that you would not like this movie. And I know for a fact that I find it to be one of my least favorite movies of all time. I don't think it's the worst movie ever made, but man, does it not put its best foot forward when it comes to the things that I like in movies.
Yeah,
So,
I went into this pretty open-minded because I was thinking like, okay, this was a Best Picture winner, and I know it's controversial because it won over Brokeback, which a lot of people thought should have won that year. So since you picked this movie, I went ahead and I watched. I'd already seen Good Night and Good Luck, so I went ahead and I watched the other four nominees, including Crash, obviously, with Brokeback Mountain, Munich, and Capote being the others,
yep.
because I just
And
wanted to know. And
so the ones that I had not seen were are Brokeback, which I still haven't seen, in Munich, which I did watch. So I've seen all four except for Brokeback. So we can discuss all four of those movies as well, or most of we can discuss Brokeback, but I have no input on it because I haven't seen it. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, and I already told you this before, but the first thing I wrote down was that I saw Keith David's name in the credits, which, if you know me, because we talked about in the Pitch Black episode, Keith David showing up in anything is always a good thing for me. So I'm like, that's a good sign. Maybe this could be good. And then, like, the next thing I wrote was, I'm already annoyed by this. I
yeah.
was really hoping that this was going to be something that maybe I didn't love. It was okay, it was fine. But man, this just rubbed me the wrong way right from the beginning.
Yeah, it starts with seemingly no direction of just back to back to back to back scenes of racist stereotypes throughout the entire like opening setup of the movie, and
Yep.
the rest of the movie is mostly that, with a few plot points like kind of mixed in a little bit, like a dash of plot when mixed with the racist stereotype that is the meat of the program here. it's it starts out with the car crash. A Asian woman rear ends Don Cheadle's car, and it immediately just like takes off from there and doesn't stop for reasons. This movie has a lot that it thinks it it has nothing to say, but it
It
thinks it
yells a
has
lot.
something to say. Yes,
This
it yells nonsense every single minute of the movie.
and it thinks that the worst thing to like with racism. This movie may as well be called racism with an exclamation point
Oh,
because it's
I'm going to find the exact picture that I saw, but somebody took the borders and the ribbon from Love Actually and put it over this poster and it said racism actually.
yeah,
It's basically that.
yeah, that's because it really just is people just yelling at each other and yelling slurs, and I think that this movie really thinks that that's like the most damning part about racism is just
No,
how mean
yeah.
people are to each other. And yeah, it's just it doesn't hit any of the points. This is the most emotionally cloying, mind-numbingly obvious,
Yeah.
self-important movie I've ever seen.
Yep.
I hate this movie. Like I wouldn't if this movie if okay, and I will also put an
Yes,
asterisk.
this is what I wanted.
I also put an asterisk by this because if this movie didn't get all the acclaim that it got, if it didn't win Best Picture at the Academy Awards and get all this attention because of that, I probably wouldn't think too much on it. I'd be like, okay, it's a pretty
Yeah.
bad movie that nobody saw and nobody cares about. But this is a Best Picture winner. So I'm like, I don't even know how this became part of the discussion. You know, like I get it in context for the time period in the kind of early 2000s when this was made. You know, it's that post 9/11, racial stereotyping and everything is kind of at a high in the United States at that time.
Which there definitely was racial tension at the time, but
Yeah.
nothing even close to this. Even on a minutely basis. I don't I This is two people's take on Los Angeles style racism, which isn't even this. And of course I don't live nor have I ever I've been to Los Angeles, but I haven't seen the racism that is actually there. All I know is the place where I've been to and only the my personal experience with racism, which is way different than other people's. However, man, this doesn't even look real close to realism. And
No, I mean, there's even
man,
things in the movie that feel like they have truth in it, but it's just presented in such a way that kind of self-importance to it that just kind of makes it feel fake even when there are scenes and there are moments that feel really authentic, but it's just all strung together. It's kind of an anthology of sorts even though it doesn't like have segments, but it doesn't really have like an
no,
actual through line.
it just jumps
Yeah.
back and forth in a very roundabout way. Every single time that it would move from scene to scene, I would just be like, "Oh, so we're done with that for now." It as soon as I get involved with a storyline or I feel like I'm connecting to a storyline, it moves to the next one. So I don't feel like I can connect with this movie.
Yeah, and sometimes that storyline doesn't come back for like
Nope.
30 minutes or more. Like
Sandra
I think
Bullock has two and a
I was
half
about to say
scenes.
Sandra Bullock's whole thing in this movie. So she is the wife of
Brendan
a district
Fraser's character.
attorney
I'm gonna be
played by
honest,
Brendan
don't know
Fraser.
any of their names. I know
Yeah.
Don Cheadle's character's name is Graham. That's it.
They're
That's all
like
I
the
know.
Calbits or something like that. Something like I don't know. But
Yeah, I don't know.
either way, they're walking down the street in a nice part of town and she sees a couple of black people played by you got Ludacris and I don't remember the other guy's
Ludacris
name.
is my favorite part in this movie, and it's not even close.
um, so you got Ludacris and this
And
other
that's a
guy
sad
that
fact.
yeah, and they're talking to themselves about how people are assuming things about them, and
Well, no,
then
they walk out of a restaurant, and they said that Ludacris says that the waitress was being racist to them because she wasn't refilling their coffee as much as white people's, but the waitress was black. So what is this movie trying to say? Is this movie trying to say that black people can be racist towards other black people? Because that is true, but why is it saying it in that way?
well,
And
and okay,
why movie? Why?
and okay, did you notice? Okay, the movie's whole point, obviously here, because it's clearly laid out right away, is that everybody is racist in some way, which I don't think is
I don't
necessarily
agree with that.
untrue. I
I
everybody
would
has
say that
biases
yes,
and prejudice built
which
into
I
systems.
wouldn't consider biases to be everyone is racist.
Right.
I wouldn't say that. I would say everyone has biases because those two things are very, very different.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree with you here.
Yeah, but the movie thinks that it's just saying everybody's racist.
Yeah,
And that instead of it being like kind of you start there in the movie. No, the movie starts there and it ends there. It has no growth of that idea or that thought throughout. It thinks it's bringing some nuance to it and it's
it
not.
thinks the characters grow by realizing that we can be wrong in our biases sometimes, and that unless we understand our biases, we won't move past them, and everyone is gray. There's not really much black and white to morality. Everyone is situated quite neatly in the gray area, which a lot of movies do this a lot better. If we just want to talk about race relations, I mean,
Yeah.
Do the
And
Right
I'm
Thing, 12 Years a Slave, Get Out, and that's just that's just three off the top of my head. Get Out does
yeah.
this so much better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So much better.
I started writing down movies actually that you should watch instead of this while I was
Absolutely,
watching it,
yeah.
instead of taking notes about the movie because there's nothing else thought the movie had interesting to say. But I wrote down Blind Spotting, a movie that came out a few years ago. It's a great movie. I wrote down Do the Right Thing. I wrote American History X. And I actually
Yes.
even
I would
I
I was going to talk about that.
I even wrote Munich because
Oh
Munich I
yeah.
think has a better understanding of like the circular nature and the circular and violent nature of hatred in the world. And
It literally in American History X, which came out like 5 years 6 years before this movie. So, and that's counting if it was released in 2004, which I consider it to be released in 2004. So, it came out 6 years ago. Literally, one of the quotes in that movie is "violence begets violence," which is very, very true. And Munich does go over that because there was the circular. Every single time a Palestinian attack happened, Israeli, uh, the Israeli government would retaliate almost tenfold sometimes.
right.
So it would can it and it still continues to this day. It's it, Munich is
Yeah,
actually very good because
yeah.
because it is very relevant now with how Palestinian and Israeli relations have have evolved over time, and it's still kind of like that even from 1972. So yes, yeah, it's much more important than this movie.
Yeah. And leaning into the whole like post 9/11 paranoia stuff too, like Munich directly deals with terrorism
Yep.
and it's clearly kind of representing a perspective that like the terrorist act is awful and the response to the terrorist act is in turn awful and it just creates this horrible cycle, which is exactly kind of what the US was going through at the time
Yeah.
with after 9/11. But yeah, so okay, back to Crash though. So Sandra Bullock's whole character, like storyline in this movie, is she's a little bit worried about these black guys walking down the street, but then she ends up being right about that because she gets carjacked. And then she gets really upset about the fact that she was carjacked, and then she's racist to
Michael
Michael
Pena.
Pena's character who's fixing their door lock. And then she disappears for a long stretch of the movie, shows back up, falls down the stair, twists her ankle, and then her housekeeper helps her, and she's the only one around to help her, and so now she's better.
Which the only other scene that, or it's very short scene, but she opens up the dishwasher and the dishes are clean, but they're not put away, and so she complains about that to her housekeeper.
Yeah,
That's her entire arc. Everyone is
yeah.
racist until they fall down the stairs,
And you can go through every character in the movie in a very similar way.
and it's pretty. Yeah, it is pretty much that.
It's just scattershot, and it's the bare minimum for what this story is calling for. Yeah,
Ugh.
it's real bad. It's this is a really, really like atrociously bad movie. I don't like I said, I don't understand how this got into the conversation even at the time because my goodness.
I don't understand how. Like, listen, I know that actors when they read scripts, like, or maybe some of them don't. They just believe that their agents are doing things with their intentions in mind. So they're just like, yeah, I'll accept the script. If
Yeah.
I had read this script, I would have been like, okay, I'm turning this back in. Please don't call me ever again. I am not going to be part of this movie. This there's no way this movie gets off the ground, and then it wins Best Picture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, and it's also okay. So we were saying that the everybody's racist, and then you said that black people can be racist to other black people. Okay. Well, it would be interesting maybe to explore something like that, except that consistently there are three different
Yeah,
examples of this throughout the movie. The only um, group of people that are racist against themselves are black people.
yeah.
And that's represented in three different ways in this movie, with both the ludicrous character and the way that they're talking
Don
about
Cheadle and
things.
his brother.
Don Cheadle and his brother. Okay, four times. Because then you also have the Terrence Howard
Oh yeah,
situation.
yep,
And then you have the Keith David thing too.
yep.
All of them kind of represent in some way them, and like they try to make it like a systemic thing a little bit with the Keith David situation. But it's like you're just, if you expanded this to any other, you know, race or group of people, like they don't though. It's pretty isolated. That one idea is isolated just to black
It
people, and it's
there is a tiny thing. Jennifer Esposito brings up the fact that everyone calls her Mexican, even though I believe it's her father is Puerto Rican, her mother is from El Salvador. Latino and Latina individuals are a little bit sometimes, because their cultures are mostly different when it comes to the different countries. If you want to call those races, I guess not. It's more so nationalities. They definitely are very prejudiced against other nationalities of like different countries, kind of like that. There's a long going rivalry between Honduras and El Salvador, and they actually got into a war over it 50 years ago. But yeah, so
right.
even those kind of things can be differences that it kind of touches on, but then it doesn't explore in the same way. You're right. They four different occasions where a black person is being racist towards their own race, which white people can do that too. Hispanics can do that too. Everyone can do that. But yeah,
Yeah, it's just
only
weird
the
that the movie goes out of its way to do that four times with the same group.
right.
It's like what? But
Yeah.
yeah, and that point that you were making that she says about that feels really more like she's just like tired of being assumed Mexican because everybody just calls
Which
her that throughout the
that is
movie.
absolutely a thing that
Oh,
happens
sure. Just
here.
like all the Asian people in the movie are called Chinese,
Right.
which is not true. Actually, they use the specific slur Chinaman, which
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't realize that was still a commonplace thing in 2005.
Which Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature, dude. Asian American, please.
Right.
That's a Big Lebowski reference for the people who get it.
Yes. But like that feels dated in this movie, the
It
using
definitely
that, which
does.
it's not just dated for 2005. It feels dated like back further than that. So, because like Big Lebowski is a great point because he's used to the Vietnam War
Yeah.
era stuff, which had a lot more of that kind of talk in it.
Especially when it
So
came to it wasn't so much that they were the same nationality, it was that both countries were communists, so that was the connection that they were making.
yeah.
At least when it came to the Vietnamese government, or the North Vietnamese government, that is. Yeah, much race relations done better in The Big Lebowski than this movie somehow.
Somehow, I think any movie is better than this
Oh
movie when it comes to
yeah.
that topic, and that's the only thing this movie is doing and has going for it, which it
This
clearly
is the
doesn't.
only thing it's trying to push. There's no
Right.
plot to begin with. There is no there is literally a plot, but man, is it pushed to the wayside in favor of race relations and
Yeah, and it's all made worse by the fact that Paul Haggis is the writer and director of this, and he's a very wealthy guy. He's been in the TV industry for a long time. That was kind of he worked on like all of those shows from like the 70s and 80s that you've heard of, like Different Strokes and I'm trying to think of other ones right now, but he worked on, if you've heard of it from that period of time, The Facts of Life, Who's the Boss, One Day at a Time. He worked on all of those, and he is the creator of Walker Texas Ranger and Family Law.
so like those campy 70s and 80s sitcoms, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and then Walker Texas Ranger was like his big show that he was the creator of in the 90s.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think that this movie, like those shows would hit on this kind of stuff, race relations and stuff, very lightly, very TV like for the time. And I don't think this movie goes any deeper than any of his TV shows that he worked on back
Oh
then.
yeah, I'd agree. If and especially in the 70s and 80s, which I haven't seen a lot of sitcoms from back then, but I do know that it was very like surface level when it came to
Yeah.
racial stereotypes. I absolutely believe that he that's all he did was just bring those over and put them in a 24-esque Jack Bauer style post 9/11 uh like gritty.
Yeah. Well, apparently he wanted yeah. Yeah, apparently he wanted to make this movie because his Porsche got carjacked. And so after that he felt like, well, I guess that was obviously there's a carjacking in the movie, that's a significant plot point. But
But even
and
that's terribly written. The whole thing is
oh, yeah.
ludicrous, and Ludacris and Friend are like complaining about the fact that people are racially being prejudiced against them because they're black, because they're in a wealthy neighborhood, and I don't know. But then the exact second that they were like, oh man, we're in a wealthy neighborhood surrounded by white people, surrounded by police. Why don't we feel scared? And other guy says, because we have guns. And he says, yeah, you right. And then immediately just go and carjack somebody.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
the second that they like try to have a decent conversation, like a very profound conversation, they're just like, all right, gotta be racist again.
Right.
Ugh, this
And
movie is
yeah.
exhausting.
Oh yeah, and okay, so you know the house for Sandra Bullock and Brendan Fraser's character, like the big
Yep.
mansion that they're in?
Which they made Brendan Fraser racist in this movie. That
They
is a
did.
step too
I know, that's
far.
a
I
sin.
can't I can't abide by that. That is ugh,
um
cardinal sin.
yeah, Brendan Fraser's whole character is he's concerned about the fact that he got carjacked by two black guys, and
Not
he
because he got carjacked, but because of the optics of it. If he
because
goes
the
out and
optics of it,
says
yeah.
that they were two black people that did that
Yeah, for his own like
for
election
his
stuff.
own district
Yeah.
attorney campaign. Yep.
Yeah, he's like, we'll lose part of the black vote.
Oh. And then he's
But
like, how about we just have me pinning a medal onto a black guy?
yeah.
Yep, we'll take the firefighter. Oh, he's Iraqi. He's Iraqi? Come on.
Yeah.
We can't have a medal for an Iraq. Yeah.
Well, with the budgetary limitations of the movie being such a small production, Paul Haggis used his own house for their house. You know, that giant mansion
That's
that they
his
live in?
house?
That's his house.
Great.
So I'm like,
Man, he
okay.
should really get a guardrail for those steps. Sandra Bullock just went flying down 'em.
Oh, it's so
Oh.
funny. That scene where she trips and it like does like the low frame rate slow motion is the funniest thing. I did.
She said it was just a sprain, but like did she sprain her back? Cuz it looks like she's
I
I mean, a
I
sprain
don't
would
know.
hurt. A sprain wouldn't paralyze you.
Yeah, I don't know. I it really it's
Love
absurd.
her. I just love her arc. Dishes in the dishwasher. I'm gonna be racist about that. I fall down the
Sprain my
stairs.
knee. Yeah.
My housekeeper's the best friend I ever had.
I've never had a better friend.
I yeah. You want to hear something? The only friend I have. It's like what?
Yeah, it's
Don't you
it's
have children?
it's really
Children can be your
atrocious.
friends.
Yeah. Even some of like okay, I said that there are isolated scenes that work. There are also just like a bunch of isolated scenes that don't work. And I'll talk about a couple
There
of
are
the
also
ones
isolated scenes that ruin the good scenes.
yes, I'll talk about a couple that work first. But so I really actually liked Michael Pena's little side arc in this
Yep.
movie.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
he was to me probably the best character in the movie, like actually good, you know?
Yeah.
Um
He was the only one, the only reason that, and I don't even consider sure he had a bias towards the Persian father, but only because he couldn't understand him, which a little bit understandable. If there's a language barrier, you're gonna get
right.
angry at somebody, but he wasn't being overtly racist towards him, and
No.
he even didn't like charge him for the lock.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, which
He's
makes
just
the
a good father.
response. Yeah, it makes the
He's
response by the
just a good
Persian guy
father.
so much more extreme and just like it's kind of this movie's tone deaf and brain dead. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's awful. But you get the scene where Michael Pena's talking to his daughter under the bed. That is a really good scene.
As
You
a
know,
good scene.
he's just like it just conveys all of the emotion that you want and kind of need out of this. And you mentioned this to me before, but I think that scene and like that character dynamic would make a far more interesting movie if you just fleshed that out to a full film than this abomination does.
Correct. This movie has the worst parts of five different better movies just jumbled up into it. But it did. It grabbed the worst moments from better movies. Like the scene with Michael Pena and daughter, that is a great setup scene for a scene later on. Maybe, I don't know, when her daughter saves his life. Maybe that could have happened, but the way it happened in this movie was very, very tone deaf when it came to like
Yeah,
how you pay off a setup earlier from the for the writing. It's
right.
awful.
It really is. On the other side of that, like, and when I say well done scenes, I mean like literally the scene is done poorly because you
Yeah.
get like the scene where like Ludacris and the other guy are driving around, and there's
And they
the
just run over a guy.
yes, there's the
Oh,
Asian guy at his
yeah.
car, and you see the Asian guy at the car, and you're like, oh, are they gonna hit him? Like that would be a weird turn, but and then when they hit the guy though, I watching the movie, I was like, did they run him over or did they just hit a pothole? You know.
Yeah.
The guy was standing up fully there. It would have been like some significant like damage to the vehicle, just something. But it's just
Yeah.
in the movie. It's like boom.
Yeah,
It's like was that supposed to be them running him over?
they have the shot of them like walking out to look at the damage to the car. Car is pristine. Car is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
there's there's not even a dent that I can see.
No, they just talk about him
And he's
underneath.
just underneath the car. And they look underneath the car and he says, "Help me." And they just go like, "Well, we hit a Chinaman. All right, now what do we do?"
So they try to take it to a shop. That's
Ugh.
like I'm not gonna deal with that kind of stuff. You know, whatever. Of course, later then the guy at that shop is like, "Yeah, I'll take the," because he ends up back at that van because he remembers it, and because he steals that van because he didn't want to ride the bus. Um,
I was
because
just so confused because like they clearly, I guess the movie thinks that it drops him off at a hospital, which he eventually gets to a hospital,
right,
but they just like toss him on the ground in front of a hospital emergency room,
kind of, yeah,
which is horrible.
yeah.
And also his keys are just in that car for the
I
rest of the
know,
night.
I know.
Oh.
And then so then
And
it
then he
turns
steals
out,
his car.
well, then
Runs
it
him
turns
over,
out,
steals his car.
yeah, and then it turns out that the whole time there's apparently like a refugee like family. There's like 10 people in the back of that van. And
Yeah.
then the guy that they bring it to like the shop and he's trying to sell the car to just like get some cash quick. Um opens up the back. He's like, "I'll pay you for this." There's like 20 minutes left of the movie at this point. They're
Yeah,
like, "Let's just throw in human trafficking."
Yep. Yeah, why not?
Just for fun, you know?
Bobby Moresco looks at Paul and is like, hey, Paul, we didn't have any human trafficking in this movie yet. Just throw it in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, we'll get it in there. Don't worry. They forgot.
We'll,
Like, no, gotta throw in a
throw it in
scene.
there. What if that was the entire plot of the movie, was the human trafficking from the van, and then they
Yeah.
just forgot to shoot any of the film, and they're like, "Oh shoot, we forgot the human trafficking scenes."
Oh my gosh. Man, yeah, there's so many good like actors in this movie too, and like you
Yep.
kind of said, there were a lot of people were like jumping to be in this. Like Sandra Bullock apparently literally bought her plane ticket to fly there. Not like that's a big
No,
deal for her,
really?
but apparently she bought her
Her
plane ticket
scenes were
to.
done in a day, I have to imagine.
Oh, I don't even know,
Oh
but
man.
yeah,
Oh, that is so unfortunate.
yeah. So
Okay,
yeah, we hate
Sandra
this movie.
Bullock had The Blind Side is much better at race relations,
And that's a bad movie. That's bad
and
at
that's
race
a bad
relations.
movie.
If The Blind Side is better at race relations than your race relation
Oh
drama,
yeah,
then
yeah.
you really messed up.
You totally messed up.
Yeah.
Oh,
So obviously, this movie, like we said a few times already, won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, beating the movies that we already talked about.
well, let's not stop at that. It won for best original screenplay and
Yes.
best editing as well.
Yes, it won 3 Academy Awards. It also had nominations for
3
Best.
gigantic Academy Awards. This is so. When people talk about like, oh, it won an Academy Award. Suicide Squad won an Academy Award, sure, but it was for makeup and hairstyling. That's much different than winning Best Picture or Best Original Screenplay. When we talk about the technical awards, that is way different than if we're talking about acting, writing, or directing.
Yeah. And it also won, or it also got nominated, I mean, for Best Directing and Best Supporting Actor for Matt Dillon, the racist cop in the
Which I
movie.
which I understand. I don't think he's the best actor in this movie, but I think he's the character who's given the most, and I do think Matt Dillon plays it well.
I
So
think, I mean,
that one I kind of understand. All the other ones I don't.
he's given scenes to chew more so than
Yes.
anybody else, I think.
Which it might be because he's given the most arc in this movie, but this is a bad movie when it comes to arcs.
I
I
wouldn't
think it's
really
all
say that he
relative
has the
there.
most arc in this movie. I would say he has one of the least arcs in this movie, personally.
No, I'd say he's got the most.
I mean, that's like, they're all
Like
very
I said,
thin.
it's all relative. I
I
mean,
mean, what was his arc though? He was literally a racist cop who
his
molests a
his
woman because he's
yes,
mad that he can't
yep,
find the car that he wants to actually
yep,
find, and then
yep,
goes home to his dad who can't piss,
yep.
and helps his dad who can't piss, and then goes in and he's racist to the lady on the phone, goes in and talks to the lady in person
Hmm.
and is racist to her in person, and then
Hmm.
goes back home and continues to help his dad piss.
Yep.
That's his whole
After
character
after
arc.
having saved a woman, but yes.
Yes, he does save a
So
woman in the movie.
after having saved the same woman, and
I
that's
don't
it.
I don't think him
Which I
saving
would
the
consider.
woman
I
is him completing his arc. I
hold
do
up,
think
hold up, hold up, hold up, because I do think that it's a terrible arc. I do think it's the best arc in the movie. A terrible movie.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes, it's all relative. In
Yeah,
in any other movie, it would be the worst. In a movie like American History X, that would be the stupidest scene from the movie.
yeah, I'd be like,
But
what the heck
in a
was that?
movie like this, it's fine
Yeah,
for this movie.
which the car crash scene is another one of those scenes that's isolated, like in an isolated context, is a good scene.
It feels like they went into shooting only knowing what to do for that
Yeah,
scene.
yeah,
That's what no, that is what it feels like. It feels like Paul Haggis only had Matt Dillon's scenes written when he went into filming. So he only knew exactly what he was going to do for the racist sexual assaulting cop. That's literally the only thing it felt like was going somewhere.
right.
But it's only 25% of the movie max. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I will say in that scene, which I said is a good scene isolated from the rest of the movie, it's also the biggest culprit for the score in this movie. Can we
Yeah.
talk about that for a minute? Because my goodness, if I was talking about this movie being like emotionally cloying,
I'm gonna be honest. I probably didn't listen to the score all that much because I
it's
was too busy.
so
No,
in your
hold up. I was
face.
too busy. I was too busy laughing at the rest of the movie that I
Oh
was
yeah.
like drowning my own hearing out. But yes, we can talk about the score.
Yeah, it's literally like it has this like vocal element to it that
Yep.
I was like, what is this? Why is this the case? Because, okay, Munich also had a vocal element in their score,
Hmm.
but it made sense for the subject matter. This movie having that same kind of vocal element in it, apparently, by the way, I looked it up. It's apparently a piece of music, like the vocal element is a piece of music written by a 12th century German nun named Hildegard von Bingen.
Great name.
And so they took her lyrics and or whatever she wrote and composed back in the 12th century and added it into this score, which if you didn't think this movie was pretentious enough already, just know that the singing that you're hearing very loudly throughout a lot of this movie is apparently a 12th century nun's writings for no good reason.
Because if it's one group of guys that know the best about race relations, it's the Germans.
Yeah, so in that scene, which I said once again was a good scene, I was watching this with Hannah and we were both like
Oh, what did
confused
she think of the
and laughing a
movie?
bit. Oh, she hated it too, but we were both confused and laughing because we were like, what is this music? What am I like? What are they trying to do? This is so like heavy fisted, just punching you with this.
You know what
I'd
it
be like,
reminds me of?
what's that?
You watched Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, right?
Bringing back Zack
Every
Snyder.
yes, I am. I have to.
We're never
It's
gonna get
yeah.
the Snyder Bros on our side.
We are absolutely not. It's a new bit. like you loving the fact that Hollywood kills kids. It's like that, which this movie almost does, but
Almost.
almost,
I was
yeah.
actually a little disappointed.
No, but Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which the the score difference that it does from Joss Whedon's version is every single time that Wonder Woman is on screen, there's also like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, every single time. There's like 40 minutes of it. So it did feel a little bit like that. Just having random
Yeah.
vocal music for some reason.
Yeah, I didn't mind the more synthy elements of the score, but yeah, whenever it like diverted and then got really big with like that once again that bizarre vocal element,
Yeah.
it was just so distracting. It took me right out of scenes that were otherwise good, and in other scenes that were bad, it just made them hilarious.
I think the fact that I can't remember a lot about the score isn't a good thing because it's good scores that are memorable for a reason.
Yeah, this is
And
a bad
and they
score
also
that's memorable to me for a bad
yeah.
reason.
Yeah, and this is a score that I can't remember, so I don't know if it's good or bad
Yeah.
off the top of my head. Uh,
Yeah, but obviously, so with its Best Picture win and everything, this movie did become extremely controversial because, particularly, it was going up against Brokeback Mountain, which a lot of people think deserved to win that year. And having watched all of the movies for this Best
mhm.
Picture year, I agree with that sentiment. I think Brokeback is a really tremendous movie. I avoided it for years because I heard of it as the gay cowboy movie, and I was like, I'm not that interested in that. It's so much more than that. It's actually a really great film, and
Mhm.
watching that and then watching this right afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh. But
Oh, see, that was a mistake. You should have started with the worst movie.
oh well, I didn't know that it was going to be the worst movie. Like I said, I had positive expectations for this, even though I didn't expect it to be great.
Oh, I was about I I mean, I told you it was super controversial last episode, so I thought you were going to go into it with lower expectations.
I
That's
mean,
what I kind of
I've
wanted.
known it's controversial. The only thing I've really truly knew about this movie was that people didn't think it deserved to win Best Picture. Which I mean,
That's
like,
actually that's the exact sentiment that I went in to see it a couple of years ago.
yeah.
So, and I find it to be a terrible movie. So,
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about like the most recent thing that I think was similar to this situation at the Oscars was probably when Green Book won. The difference is though is that Green Book is fine. Like Green Book is a totally fine movie. I don't think it's Best Picture nominee
I mean,
quality.
Mahershala Ali and
Viggo Mortensen.
yeah, Viggo Mortensen are good actors, so
And
I
they're
could see
great
how
in
it.
that movie. I
Then
don't.
yeah, at least
Yeah,
it has something going for it. Then
that movie's fine though. Like it's a totally okay movie. But and I didn't like I liked watching it, but then once it got nominated for all that stuff, it just kind of became kind of a bummer because I was like, and then it won Best Picture, and
yeah.
I think in that year, so Roma was I think the biggest contender to win, which it won
Hmm.
Best Director that year, kind of similar to this year how Ang Lee won Best Director for Brokeback, Alfonso Cuarón won for Best Director when Green Book won the overall, and the difference is, though, once again, I don't think Roma was as definitive because it wasn't an English language movie, and Parasite was going to be the next year. I think this kind of opened the door for that. So,
Sometimes I'm okay with that though. Sometimes I'm okay with splitting the vote on a picture and a director.
oh yeah, no, I'm fine
Um,
with that too. If
because
one
there are some
deserves it,
movies that are a little bit too close to call, but this year not so much. I would have taken
yeah.
Capote. I would have taken Good Night, Good Luck. I would have even taken Munich over this,
Oh,
frankly.
absolutely. Any of them are better than this. I think yeah, I think Brokeback. I feel like is the most. I'm not even gonna like. I like Munich and Brokeback. I like pretty much equally. I think Brokeback kind of has a little bit more culturally to it
Of the
that I
time,
think
I
would
could
give
see,
it a more
yeah,
significant edge in terms of like which one I think should win in
a
that
movie like that
situation.
in 2005 is much. It goes a little bit more based off of the history of it
Yeah,
than how good of a movie it is, which I think
right.
can be taken into account.
Yeah, and so yeah, but like I said, I think that the Green Book situation is the closest, and it's not even nearly the same kind of level of
Yeah.
like that was like a horrible decision, which I do think the Green Book decision was a horrible one, especially since Roma is like my favorite movie of the last decade. So I
Yeah,
was very upset.
when it comes to Academy Award like snubs or upsets, a lot of people thought that Shawshank should have won over Forrest Gump. I don't see it personally.
Or
I
Pulp
like both
Fiction, or
movies.
yeah,
Or Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction's fine, but um and that kind of thing. But I understand why Forrest Gump won, and
yeah,
I like all three of those
that
movies.
was a good year.
It
Quiz
was a
Show is
very
great
good year.
too. I haven't seen Four
Yep.
Weddings and a Funeral, but the other three are all great. So
The other one that everyone brings up is Shakespeare in Love over Saving Private Ryan. I understand why Shakespeare in Love won because I watched it because I really wanted to go in thinking that uh, that Saving Private Ryan was easily the best movie of the year, which I still believe to be true. But it's not like Shakespeare in Love was this,
yeah,
so I'm
which I've
okay
not
with
seen
it.
that one either, but
Yeah, I'm okay with it winning. It's a much different thing.
yeah.
I've got several qualms with the Academy Awards. Most of it goes most I'm going to be honest, most of it follows the Will Smith thing. Um I don't think he should have been in the room after doing that. I th-
Oh, I mean,
Sure, give
yeah.
him the award, but don't keep him in the room.
That
You've
was
got
a
to kick a man
bizarre
out. You've
situation.
got to kick a man out for committing battery on live national
Yeah.
television.
Yeah,
I'm
that was
sorry. You
a
just
bizarre
can't keep him
situation.
there.
No, the Academy Awards, I will say, like, I still love the Oscars. I watch them every year, and
I
they
still
hold
think it's the most prestigious award
yeah, it
show for a
holds the
reason.
prestige, and the only
Yeah.
reason we're talking about this movie today is because it won one of these awards.
Yeah, otherwise I would have completely forgotten it
Although,
existed.
yeah, otherwise this movie would have just faded away forever, deservedly so. But so the Academy Awards do hold clout, but like we've said before, it's just they are popularity contests to some extent, and
They
a
are.
lot of it has to do with campaigning and what studios are willing to put into the campaigning for the film, and just getting the right attention on it, the right eyes on it,
Yeah, they
and
definitely
then
don't care about what they truly to believe to be the best movie of the year.
yeah, like I
They
don't think the best movie always wins for sure, and sometimes they get it right, sometimes they really do.
sometimes not even the best fifth movie of the year won.
Yeah,
Take this year for
like this
instance.
year, this one. This is my least favorite movie I've seen from 2005, and I don't know about you, but I've seen the movie Ginger Dead Man, the holiday horror movie that feels like a student
Hey,
film and
whoa, hold
probably
up.
was.
This movie is from 2004. Check your
I'm counting it as a 2005. It was released wide in 2005. Nobody really saw it except for in Toronto at a
Nobody
premiere
really saw it.
until 2005. So it's a
Thank
2005.
God, thank God no one had seen this movie
Uh,
if it got out.
but yeah, Ginger Dead Man with Gary Busey is a more entertaining film than this. I can't say that it's necessarily
I
technically
know
better,
nothing about
but
that movie, but Ginger Dead Man with Gary Busey being better than a Best Picture winner is hilarious to me.
I like it more. I would rather watch it again, and that movie is no bueno. Um, but yeah,
Which, yeah, no, continue.
yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing with the Academy Awards, and this is just clearly a case of them getting it wrong. And like I've said to people before, it's like it doesn't really matter if a movie wins an Oscar for the sake of the quality of the movie. You know,
Nominating is much more important. I still contend to that.
yeah. I think winning is still very significant though, and because I think even with a nomination, this movie would have faded away. But with a win, it's
Large
kind of
upsets like
yeah.
Roberto Benigni, even still, is it Roberto Benigni? Am I getting his name wrong?
No, I think that's right.
All right, Roberto Benigni winning, and I think it was actually '99 with Saving Private Ryan. But even though he had won, I think a Spirit Award and a SAG Award, and he might have won the Golden Globe, but I can't remember completely. But like, it was kind of expected that he could win, but it was definitely when um, what a I can't remember the name of his movie. I am flubbing this,
Life is
but
Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful. Yeah, I'm
It
sure when
wasn't the
Life is
same
Beautiful
year
came
because
out.
Spielberg won for Saving Private Ryan directing. It was another
Oh,
one
it
of
was
those
probably
split director
'97, wasn't
picture.
it?
Maybe I don't remember.
Yeah. But Life is Beautiful. I'm sure when it came out, nobody was like, I could see him winning best actor. But it's that kind of upset like
Yeah,
that I enjoy about the Academy Awards because sometimes that does happen.
yeah, yeah. It can have
But
those. Yeah,
I would have to look up and see who Roberto Benigni beat. Probably Tom Hanks was one of them from Saving Private Ryan, but he
Oh, for
probably wasn't the
acting.
best for acting specifically. Yeah,
I've not seen Life is Beautiful. I don't know what it was up for.
yeah. I think it was specifically up for acting. It might have been up for picture as well, but it lost to Shakespeare in Love.
It won three awards. It was 1999, or at
Hmm.
least the 99 awards, so it'll
The
come out in
99 awards,
98.
yeah.
So Roberto Benigni won for acting, and that won for score and foreign language film, and it lost for Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, and Editing. So
Yeah, but I guess the point I was making is
yeah, you can. That
I
doesn't matter.
still I still hold that well, it would have been important to know who was nominated. I
Right.
still hold that it's important that a specific actor or specific director be nominated rather than just winning, and we just
Yeah.
push all the other people aside just because, like, I'm gonna be honest, before I saw this movie I had seen none of the movies that were nominated, but the
Yeah.
reason I watched this movie is because I went on a spree of just watching every single post 2000 best picture winner, and I was like, there's no way that this was the best movie of the year,
No, absolutely
which is
not.
why I held the belief that 2005 was a bad year for movies for the longest time, until I actually saw the most of the nominated movies, as well as a couple of others from 2005, and I don't hold that opinion to be true anymore. I think they
Yeah.
just straight up made a mistake. It's not that it was a bad year for movies, they straight up just made a mistake.
Yeah. It was a
So
really big mistake for the it's
it's
kind it
it's
really
their
was kind
biggest.
of emblematic of what people were already critical of the Academy Awards for. It kind of represented that. This was a very safe choice. This was a predictable choice from like a um from the perspective of what you assume the Academy to be, and the type of people that are in the Academy.
See, I don't understand that, because Midnight Cowboy won in the 70s.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that those aren't the same voters who voted for this movie? Because I'd argue there were still some. A lot of people make the argument that it was the older voters that didn't like Brokeback Mountain because it was about gay cowboys. But I don't
There were
know.
a bunch of public things that were said about Brokeback Mountain by Academy members at the time, um, which kind of got into the press and kind of started to sway certain perspectives on that. Um,
That could have just been and I'm not saying it is the case, but it could just be a vocal minority type thing.
yeah, it,
It's the people who stay silent are probably the ones that were fine with it. They just liked the fact that they saw most of their friends on screen
yeah,
for Crash, and were like, okay, Crash was a good
yeah.
movie to me.
For
So
whatever reason, Crash somehow struck a chord with enough of the voting body of the
I
Academy
don't
that
get
year
it.
to be able to win over much better movies. So it's
Could it be the Los Angeles connection? Because that's I'm trying to grasp at straws here, trying
I
to figure out
yeah,
how they made the
it really
connection.
it feels like it looking back, it really just feels like one of the biggest mistakes they've made in terms of
Yeah.
actual picks, not in terms of like their voting like policies and stuff. They've made some wacky decisions in the last couple of years with like
Well,
rules and
the
stuff.
five movies, Crash was about racial relations. Brokeback Mountain was about homosexuality. So was Capote. And Capote more so about the controversies that comes with writing and that kind of
Right.
thing. I mean, Harper Lee's in the
I
movie
mean, it's
too.
Capote's interesting because it really kind of it's highlighting the formation basically of the true crime genre as Truman Capote made it,
Right.
with that book, and it's which has had a huge impact, which is why I guess they would make that into a movie. Two
Yep.
movies actually that
And
focus on the exact same story.
and and Munich's about terrorism, and Good Night and Good Luck is about 50s McCarthyism.
Yes.
So it's not like if you consider what a safe choice was, I don't see how Crash is the safest,
Yeah.
aside from it's just post 9/11. I
I
don't get
think
it.
I think for
I
the
don't I
time
don't get that.
period, I don't know. I think people
Cuz if we're just talking about,
I think people saw it as a safe choice over Brokeback specifically because
sure, but
yeah.
I still don't think this movie should have won over any of the
No,
other three.
absolutely not.
So,
Part of that's about
yeah, I don't
momentum and
get that argument.
campaigning, and that's where award stuff gets kind of muddied. So
and that's the reason why I don't like the award shows, is because the winner is not decided by quality or anything like that. It's decided by a political
Yeah, I
campaign,
do think that
essentially.
more than
A an allegory for a
yeah,
political
I do
campaign.
think that most of the time they pick something that is worthy of that. You know, even if it's not my favorite movie of the year or, you know, my personal choice, it's I think that most of the time they get it in the ballpark of right. You know, something that is worthy of the
Yeah.
title. And which is why I still
Or
respect the
sometimes they just
awards.
get it right, like Parasite.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And which is why I still respect the awards overall, which is also why something like this winning is such a glaring, obvious mistake looking back on it. It feels just completely
Mhm.
wrong. So, um, yeah, I don't know how much more I have to say about it at this point,
I could
but
talk
I
about it
will
for
say
3 hours,
that
but I don't want to. So
yeah, I know. I'm kind of running out of steam on wanting to talk about
yeah.
it more. I will say, if you're not convinced that this movie's awful yet, the tagline for it on the poster is "Moving at the speed of life, we are bound to collide with each other." So, if you weren't already convinced that this movie's awful, that was like on the poster.
Also,
So-
the poster has Michael Pena embracing his daughter after they thought that she was killed. Um,
oh
and
yeah, because he fires. Oh man, the
and
Persian guy fires the gun, and he thinks that he shot her, and it turns out it was blanks, but he thinks of it as an act of God.
by the way,
Yes.
um, I love the fact that like as soon as it happened, my first thought was, oh, there's no way she's dead. Not with that execution from that shot. But immediately afterwards, I was like, is nobody gonna check to see where the bullet landed? Because uh, that could have hit a dog like
Well,
two
yeah.
blocks
Well, it
away.
was a blank because he saw it as like an act of
Yeah,
God.
because eventually, yeah, like 20 minutes later, they decide to like show that she picks up the gun as well as the blanks. Which, come on, that's why you got to do that now.
Right, but the guy's
Why you?
like gone. The Persian guy, the prison shopkeeper's like whole arc in the movie is he's angry about the way he's been treated because he resembles people who, you know, 9/11, like from the Middle Eastern countries, and so he's just angry the whole time because of that. And then the anger boils up to a point where he goes out to shoot somebody that really had nothing to do with any of the things against him.
Not only that, he helped him. He fixed
Yeah.
a lock. He didn't charge him. I don't get it.
Yeah, and then in the moment, like his whole like redemption in the movie is that he thinks there was some sort of divine act that prevented him from murdering, that saved him from that, and that now he gets to live. I'm like, if I was Michael Pena in that situation, I'd be like, I know exactly who this guy is, and he attempted to kill me.
Oh yeah,
I would be
yeah,
I would
no,
be calling the police on him. So
yeah.
like
He attempted to kill my daughter. I'm buying my own gun, going out and killing that man.
Ugh, man. Ugh, what a terrible movie. Let's just get into scoring.
Sure, sure, let's do it.
All right, scoring 0 to 2, 0 being bad, 1 being good, 2 being great.
0 to 2. This is probably not what we'd rate this movie, either one of us, because I would rate it a -1. All
Uh,
right, let's go. Let's get
okay,
into it.
writing 0.
Writing is an easy 0.
Yeah,
Very easy.
okay.
This is probably the easiest 0, especially given the fact that it won an Academy Award for it.
Oh, yeah, like we've said before, if we're grading on a curve, you know, like we
This
kind of
movie
have
does
done,
horribly.
this movie gets the bad end of that curve because it got all of the acclaim in the world. It got the
This
highest
movie
pedestal
only,
in all of film.
yeah, this movie only goes about 20% into each character,
Oh man.
and for reasons, because it felt like more characters equals better.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about all the characters because there's literally like 40 characters in this
Yeah,
movie.
we didn't talk about
Terrence Howard
the
or
dude who,
Tandiwe Newton.
we didn't.
We didn't talk
Nope.
about the Ryan Phillippe character.
We
We
didn't talk about the bank manager from The Dark Knight who kills everyone with a
William
shotgun.
Fichtner,
William
who
Fichtner,
shows up for
who
one scene.
yeah, who shows up for one scene and plays race relations with Don Cheadle and somehow
Yeah.
sways him.
Right. Which is strange. Like that scene, like the power dynamic shift in that scene was so weird.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't buy this.
The entire time I was watching that scene, even like a couple days ago when I watched this, I was like, "Who are you? What? What? Who are you? What are you doing here? Doing this to
Yeah,
Don Cheadle, a detective for the police
yeah.
department? What are you doing here?"
Don Cheadle probably has the most screen time of any character, but
Yep.
he was also a producer of the movie, so shame on you, Don Cheadle. I like Don Cheadle overall, but this is not a
Does that mean he
bright
won an
spot.
Oscar for this? Oh, it's
Um,
only executive producers, right? Who
no,
win the
usually
Academy Award.
producers get nominated. I don't know actually. That's something to look up, I guess. But
There's only a specific few producers that win.
yeah, it's.
I
I'm actually trying to find out.
Don Cheadle was nominated for an Oscar, so it means he didn't
No, he did
get
not
one.
win for this movie, but
Which is weird because I thought producers were more important than executive
I
producers
don't.
because executive producers are essentially just like a title.
It's kind of murky because yeah, it's the producerial role is
Are you
complex
saying
and
it's
it
a gray
differs.
area?
It's
This
a
movie was right.
everything is gray. It's not what this movie feels like. This movie feels like it's trying to say that, but it failed horribly. and
By
made,
the way, Terrence Howard like had a much better role in Hustle and Flow than he did in this movie
oh man,
of the same year. So,
yeah. Well, Hustle was oh yeah, because 3 6 Mafia
mhm.
won
One
the
for
Academy Award
best
before.
original
Yeah,
song.
yeah, they did for
Like
Hustle and
that's the
Flow.
type of upset that I love. I love the
Right.
fact that Al Gore has an Academy Award. I love the
Yeah.
fact that Eminem does, that 3 6 Mafia does
Yeah.
for reasons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Which Crash was also nominated for Best Original
Kobe
Song.
Bryant had an Academy
Yeah,
Award.
Crash was also nominated for Best Original Song, so thank goodness it
No
lost
way.
for that one too, because otherwise I would have
Yeah.
4.
4 Academy Awards. Wow.
Not that,
To
but
Shawshank Redemption,
yeah,
0.
Best Original Song really doesn't matter for the most part. There's very few
Absolutely
examples
not.
where it actually
It's
matters.
typically a
But,
Disney movie will win or something like that.
yeah, just yeah, something with some big. If it got radio popularity,
It's gonna win.
yeah, like Happy from Minions.
Oh my god, what? Pharrell has a. You
He
still
does.
haven't seen The Lion King 2019, have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
don't.
Speaking of building things like entire CGI worlds.
Oh, like world building things.
Oh, yeah, that was
nice,
my worst transition
nice
ever.
segues.
That was a horrible transition.
I too am a master of segues.
All right, world building.
I believe that this is Los Angeles. The world building outside.
I'll
that
give
is
it a
just
1
racism
for
all the
world
time.
building. Yeah, like everything tracks, in terms of following around with everything
The
happening.
locations, I believe, are Los Angeles. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I'll say about the movie. Good, bad, neutral. Probably neutral. It's fine.
I'll give world building a 1 because it manages to get through the kind of navigating everything in a way that I feel like the time frame and the spacing of everything makes sense for the movie. There are other things I have extreme issues with. World building is done in a way that I think is adequate. I think
I'm just gonna say
good.
it's all relative because it's the least offensive thing here.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why you're okay with it.
Yeah. So world building. I just give
I'm
all-
not gonna fight you on a 1 because I really want to talk about the things that I want to talk about.
characters 0.
Characters is an easy 0.
As we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Directing, I would give directing a 0.
I would give directing a 0 as well.
I just
How
this movie's
how did you get all this together? How did you write this? How did you put it together? And how did you come out with this product and think, yes, print?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
I'd give acting.
So let's talk about acting
Okay,
because
yeah.
I've given actors a curve for being B-list or C-list actors and them performing better than expected. This is all A-list actors and they all perform terribly.
Yeah, they're like I've
So-
said, in isolated moments, there's a lot of different people who are giving great performances. I think Michael Pena is good in the whole movie, but I think Sandra
think he is,
Bullock is kind of
but he's
loud
only in
and
it for a
not
scene
great.
and a half.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with everybody in this movie. If somebody's giving a
Yeah.
great performance, they're giving a great performance for a scene and a half, and sometimes
They're
across.
giving a great performance.
Yeah.
There's no way Michael Pena has more than 10 minutes of screen time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that most people in this movie have 5 or 6 minutes of screen time.
Don Cheadle's fine, but his acting
Yeah.
seems reserved. He feels like, you know what he feels like? The incorrect version of William Holden in Network.
Oh,
He's passive, but passive for the wrong
right.
reasons. He's just letting the world like affect him without interacting with it.
Yeah.
So
And as the
for
character that
some
probably
reason,
has the most screen time, I would say, like that's kind of like
that's a
it's
mistake.
not a good through line.
No.
So,
Don Cheadle's mother plays a great is great in this movie, but again, only
yeah.
5 minutes of screen
Yeah,
time.
I think Matt Dillon is really good in this movie too, but once again, very limited screen
20 minutes
time,
of screen time. Yeah,
and his character sucks. You know, like,
his character does
that's
suck.
the difference between character and acting, though. That's why we separate them
Yeah,
because
exactly.
his acting is good, the character's like the worst, both in terms of he's actually a bad person and he's also very thin and not very fleshed out.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm kind of torn on acting between a 1 and a 0.
If we're giving the opposite curve, I would give this a 0.
I do expect more from it.
And also, if we're talking about accolades, Tandy Newton won a BAFTA for this, and Matt Dillon was nominated for both a Golden Globe
And an
and
Oscar.
an Academy Award, among others.
I don't
So
think it deserved any of that.
yep.
I don't think the acting overall is bad. But I don't know if I can call it overall good
So
either.
you watched Brokeback Mountain.
Because it's also
Jake
ludicrous
Gyllenhaal.
just kind of
Jake
talking.
Gyllenhaal didn't. I believe Ludacris was just playing
Oh
himself.
yeah, absolutely.
Jake Gyllenhaal was not nominated for Best Supporting
Yeah, he
Actor.
was.
Was he nominated for Best
He was
Supporting Actor?
indeed.
Oh, well, he didn't win over Matt Dillon, so
No,
in the eyes of the Academy, they are the same.
George Clooney won for Syriana.
Which he won basically everything that year for Syriana. So
Yeah, that was George Clooney's year to win an Oscar. I guess. But
yeah, he couldn't win for director or picture this year. So
no, but I mean, yeah, I mean, good for him though. He won an Oscar the year that he directed probably his best movie. George Clooney doesn't have like a great filmography from his
I don't remember his other movies, so I believe that Good Night and Good
the
Luck are his best movies.
the Midnight Sun, or not? Is it Midnight Sun? It was one of these things. It's like this Netflix movie that he made a couple years ago. Not good. Um, Suburbicon is not good. The Leatherheads is not good. You know, he's made a few okay movies and one really good movie, I think, with Good
Wait,
Night
is the
Good Luck.
Leatherheads that movie about like the
Football.
yeah the early 1900s football?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
There's
no!
John Krasinski in it. Yeah,
Oh no!
yeah. It's not great.
No, it was
He
not.
made The Monuments Men, also not great. He's had a kind of a lackluster
Oh, he
directorial
did make the
career.
Monuments Men.
Mm-hmm.
Monuments Men I went to go see in theaters, and the movie cut off about 15 minutes before it was done, and I was okay with it.
Yeah, I don't
That
think
should
he's
tell you
been a
everything you need to know.
yeah, I don't think he's had a very great directorial career. However, this is a good bright
Yeah,
spot
Good Night
in
and Good
that.
Luck is a better. Wow.
Yeah.
I guess flash in the pan. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, he had a couple movies before this that I haven't seen but were well received,
Yeah.
But then after this one, everything that he's done has been kind of eh. So, yeah, okay, acting, I'll be with you with the 0. I think that there's some good performances, but the good performances are only there for a few minutes and then that's it. Everything else is just overdone and they're too good like the actors in this movie are too good for what they're doing in this movie.
Like the difference is Beatrice Straight was on network for about 5 minutes, but she gave an amazing performance.
Right.
Everyone who's here for 5 minutes gives an okay performance relative to the movie that they're in.
Right.
Michael Pena would be he's an okay side character in most other movies, but he's the best part of this movie. So, well,
Yeah.
what do you say?
I mean, I always like Michael Pena whenever he shows up in anything, but I like that he
He's
gets a little
really
bit
good
more
in End of
featured here.
Watch.
But yeah, I'll say it's a 0 because based on our rating system, if it's just okay, then it's not good. So that's a 0.
If
So
we're talking about accolades, fine. But if we're talking about accolades compared to how well they actually do, as well as how prominent and how really good these actors can be, like
yeah,
Don Cheadle, like Sandra Bullock, I don't get how they got to here.
yeah. In our rating system, if you get a 10 out of 20, then that's a good movie.
That
In a
yes, that
hypothetical
is that
sense.
is. You could say it's an average movie, but
Yep. It-
anything above 5 is above average. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. So yeah, because that's just how it works for us.
that's how it works for us.
Okay. So acting 0, visuals. This movie looks fine. You know, Like,
Given a $6 million budget, yeah, it's fine.
I think it. Yeah, it looks. I think it. I mean, it looks good. Nothing about the way that it is visually presented is specifically offensive,
It's
and
yeah,
I
all
want to
the
be harder on it, but I'll give the visuals a one
well,
because
but
I
no,
think it.
it's a bit like in Bruges. All the shots are very simplistic
Yeah,
on purpose because there are budgetary constraints and because the film is writing centric, which is hilarious for me to say. Um,
it is
but
though.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I'll give the visuals a one. It's not something I'm
I would
watching
give
the
the
movie
visuals a
for.
one. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not. It did well given its budget.
yeah. It, like
The
the movie
cinematog
looks
the
good.
cinematography itself, there are shots like man, the shot of the Persian shopkeeper walking in after his shop was broken into. There's a long, like 10-second shot of just his feet walking along the shop, not showing the damage of it, just showing
Yeah,
his feet and like a little bit of glass and that kind of thing, which is a terrible way to like show expression of what he's feeling or the damage that's done to the shop or like the thoughts going through his head. Just showing like the him transporting himself to a different part of the screen is not the way to show that. So the cinematography is very strange in parts. So yeah, a one is perfectly fine with visuals.
yeah.
It's not great.
Um, editing.
Is a zero.
Yes, I agree because, like I said, there's like weird
It won
stuff.
an Oscar for
It
this.
won an Oscar for this, and there's something like I said, Sandra Bullock's character, like her arc, like she just disappears from the movie for like 40 minutes, and then
I
shows back
forgot
up.
Brendan Fraser existed.
I know he's barely in this movie, and
He's
they
barely in
kind of
this
give him
movie.
a thing too. Like
This movie was greenlit the second that Brendan Fraser joined on board.
it just
Think about
doesn't.
that.
Yeah, it just doesn't balance any of these things, and like the way it's like it cuts back and forth between the things. Like I said, in world building, like the space and everything and the area that they exist in, it all makes sense to me. But like from like an actual cinematic language and like the flow of the movie perspective,
The
it
pacing
is
is some of
just
the worst I've seen.
all over the place. It is so bizarre. I was like, is this movie almost over? And it was like an hour in.
Yeah. It's
So
because it feels like a bad dream.
yeah, yes,
You don't figure out like the start of the dream that you have, nor do you figure out the end. You just kind of are put into a spot as if you've been it's Inception puts it perfectly. You're put into a spot where you think you've been here for a while, even though you've just started dreaming. And the second you wake up, it's like abrupt. It's an
yeah,
abrupt ending. And that's exactly what happened here.
yeah. Yeah, man, put that on the DVD box cover. Just it feels like a bad dream. Great
It
American
feels
Movie
like
Review.
yep, it feels like a bad dream.
All right, sound. I feel pretty strongly about. Okay,
Mhm.
the sound in the movie's fine overall.
Yeah,
However, I found
drowned out by
that
terrible score.
I found that score to be so distracting and obnoxious. I have to give sound a zero
Okay.
personally.
I don't feel as strongly as you. I feel like the sound is fine. And
I
I
think
don't remember the score.
yeah,
If I
if
remembered the
you,
score, I'd probably
yeah,
give it a zero.
if you watched it again, which I hope you never have to do that.
I am never going to watch this again, man.
Yeah, okay, so I bought the Blu-ray for this at a
Oh, you
secondhand shop.
fool.
For
You better sell that right away.
it was $3.
No, no, no.
And
No, no, no. Don't sell it. Just burn it.
and okay, well here's the thing. When I tried to watch it, it turns out this was still in its like wrapping from like
Wrapping and
its
everything like
original
that.
release.
$3.
Yeah, it was still in the wrapping.
Yikes.
So the Blu-ray was unharmed hypothetically, but when I put it in, the Blu-ray was totally
Uh
fried. Could
I
not watch the
disagree.
movie.
This movie was in the box. That Blu-ray was harmed.
Yeah, it was totally fried though. Couldn't watch it on disc, so I had to watch it on like Freevee with like ads, which was fine because I was like, I couldn't bear to keep this movie. I would just get rid of it immediately.
The
So,
disc imploded once it figured out what was burned onto it.
right, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the movie. Let's get this out of here. So yeah,
By
I'm
the way, can we
glad.
talk about the title and how it's Crash because of the fact that there are like 3 car crashes in the movie? Can we talk like
Well, it also opens. The reason I wrote, I'm already
it
annoyed
opens with
by
a car
this.
crash?
Well, it opens with Don Cheadle saying, "I think we're always like crashing into each other just to
Oh my
feel something,"
God.
or something like that. Some like just
I
terrible line.
forgot about that.
That's why I wrote down This is a good sign with Keith David in the credits, and then I'm already annoyed by this was at the first line of the movie. So
But 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 it starts with a car crash and then it ends with another car crash where like immediately everyone's being racist towards each other.
yeah. So for our alternating category, which is kind of our genre category, I guess I would say.
Genre
This
category
one,
is a good one.
yeah, like our genre category, this movie, we don't quite know how to
Ooh,
define this. It's kind of a crime movie, it's kind of an anthology movie. Either way, whatever it's doing,
we
it's
should have
bad
put
at
bad
it.
movie because it's under the genre of bad movie.
Yeah, whatever it's trying to do in this movie, it's bad at it. So it's a zero,
Yeah,
just to
no,
put
the
it simply.
okay, so a point I wanted to make about this is everyone always talks bad about like Pulp Fiction because of like the anthology nature of it or like the cutting around different times.
Yeah,
Um, but this movie is proof that not everyone can do that type of movie.
right. Exactly.
So anyone there are many better movies that do
I'm
this kind of thing than this
freaking
movie.
Trick or Treat. I don't know if you've seen that. So the
I have not.
Halloween movie is a way better example of this kind of anthology. It does have it's a little bit more focused in the stories as they're going along, but it has some kind of
This is the
interconnect.
oh man, this is the most unfocused movie I've ever seen. So yeah,
Oh, yeah, like Trick or Treat is a much better example of like how to do like an interconnected anthology style story like this. Yeah, like over a very limited time period kind of thing is why I bring it up as like a similar kind of movie. Um, yeah.
I can't remember what the movie is named, but there's a movie that if you sit down and watch it will take like days to watch, like 80 hours long. That movie is
Oh,
more
yeah.
focused than this.
It's like I haven't seen it, but
So
it has to be.
no, it has to be. There's no way.
All right. Impact is an interesting one with this one because I feel very strongly about it just being a one,
A
despite the
negative
fact that it's
impact. Yeah. Well, the way I think of it
because
is it's a negative impact.
this, yeah, being a Best Picture winner and being a part of the conversation for as long as it has been, it has an impact for sure. However, I think that its existence in the conversation is pretty much exclusively about how it didn't deserve to be a part of the conversation. And
Yeah.
because it won, it has continued to be a part of that conversation. So in that way, I think that Impact is a one, but even most Best Picture winners, I think would inherently be a two, as long as the movie is up to that kind of quality. But in this situation, I don't believe that's the case because I don't think that.
Or
Yeah,
if it's a it's weird because it would all balance itself out if it was an older Best Picture winner. You could still see that as innovative and influential, so it could still be a two.
yeah,
Even if people don't talk about it as much, its ripples are still like seen somewhere. But
yeah.
with
It's interesting.
this movie had a and still has a large negative impact on the Academy.
Yeah, in terms of
So
its perception,
yeah,
but
but what do you how would you qualify that with impact? Because impact is very neutral. Impact can be good or bad.
yeah, I'd say the impact is one. I because once again, I don't think that this movie, the only conversation that exists around it, still to this day, is the fact that it didn't deserve to win.
Yeah.
And even if you look at like
Well, that's among
Paul
film
Haggis,
buffs, but
but if you look at
the
like,
people who bothered to review and bothered to watch this loved this movie.
yeah,
And
a lot of them
I'm
did at
being
the time when it came
serious.
out.
Not just then. Like audience scores are always higher than critic scores,
They
and
are.
so
But
this movie
nobody's
is
actually
well
watching this
loved.
movie anymore. You know, it's like a movie that was well loved at the time, but like I don't think anybody's really going back to it, you know, personally.
Yeah, you're right. Except for the
Also,
film buffs that watch Best Picture
yeah.
awards.
And also
This
Paul,
guy,
if you look at
unfortunately,
it, yeah, if you look at it from Paul Haggis's career perspective too, Paul Haggis was on a streak because he has the distinction of writing back-to-back Best Picture winners, which no other person has ever done, with Million Dollar Baby and then this the next year.
yeah, looking at his directorial
And
Credits.
then
This looks
yeah,
like this killed his career.
and then he also wrote Letters for Iwo Jima, which got nominated for Best Picture the following year. So he was
Sure.
on like a 3 year streak. But I think because of this movie and because of the backlash against it, and then you look at his other movies that he made later, like the Russell Crowe movie, like The Next 3 Days or whatever it's called, I don't know, and some
Yeah, it's the
others
next
like
3 days.
yeah, it just kind of his career just kind of piddled out, you know. Not that he needed to, because clearly he has a very nice house and he had a whole career in television before he ever started directing. But
Yeah, yeah. He's got a house that Sandra Bullock and Brendan Fraser have been to. Not a lot of us can say that.
right, so I that's why I would personally argue that the impact, despite being a Best Picture winner, is just a one.
Yeah, I think given it also made $100 million gross, which I have no idea how. Uh, given
Yeah, it made
our
money, but
what
yeah.
given what we have always brought up when it comes to impact, accolades, money, and critics, this should be a two.
But I think that
Think about it.
I
Think about that.
yeah, exactly. I think you're exactly right.
We gave
And the
Iron
fact
Giant a two just because it's popular. This movie, not as popular, still kind of talked about, but has the accolades and has the money to show for it.
and yet I
So,
still don't
and
think it has the
and
impact
yet both
value.
of us, I'm going to agree. I'm
I
still going to
yeah,
give this a one purely
yeah.
based off pettiness because I do think this had a very negative impact on movies and on the Academy. So I'm still going to
Yes.
give it a one, but for
Yes, I
my
still
own
think
personal
yeah,
reasons.
it definitely had impact. It wasn't a movie that lacks impact.
On
It
paper
has
for us, this is a two.
yeah, on
I'm
paper,
going to keep it
but
straight. Yep, it
I
is.
really I really do think like the with the benefit of time, you know, looking back on it, I don't think it's had that much of an impact on like Hollywood overall, you know, and like the film industry overall. It did have a TV show that lasted for 2 seasons, but then
Oh
when Dennis
no.
Hopper died, they canceled it, which means I don't think that the studio believed that the TV series was popular enough to survive their biggest star dying. So they clearly just axed it from there. But yeah, like I think the impact of it was short-lived in kind of the mid to late 2000s, and then it just kind of has petered away, and I don't think people this isn't one that people are going to go back to.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that does it for our first ever roast
Yeah.
of a movie.
Yeah.
And it's for Crash of all things. So, yeah, that
It's
was a
for a
lot.
Best Picture winner.
Yeah, for a Best Picture winner. Yeah,
Although, good to see Keith David again, even though it's
good to
only
see
for
him
30
again.
seconds.
You know what? He kills it in the one scene he's there. You know.
Well, I mean, it's one scene. You're gonna kill it in the one scene that you have.
Yeah, I think
I'm
William
sorry,
Fichtner's
but
good in his one scene.
if he read the script and was like, "Oh, you've put me in 30 seconds of a movie," okay, well, bring my A game.
I mean, he does though every time. Love
Yep.
Keith David, so props to him. This movie gets actually a 3 out of 20 just for Keith David.
If you're keeping track at home, that's plus 3 points for Keith David.
Absolutely, not for Crash, for Keith David.
Not for Crash, for Keith David.
All right.
The yeah, that you know what that makes sense because impact it's got impact because Keith David was there.
Keith
World
David.
building. The world
That's
is
the
better
Keith
for
David
having Keith
effect.
David in it. The
Indeed,
visuals.
indeed.
Keith David is on screen. That's a good visual right there. Yep, I see
Hypothetically, I
it.
would argue that hearing his voice would also give
Was
it
sound.
sound.
You know what?
But it's a great voice. But I'm gonna keep
You know
that at
what?
0.
I put the movie on mute for his 30 seconds, so I didn't hear a thing. I don't know
Oh,
what you're
okay, okay.
talking
Well, then
about.
never mind. We'll just skip
Never mind.
it. Back to 0.
Back to.
Because Kyle didn't hear it because he muted it.
Yep,
Okay.
I didn't want this terrible movie to taint my view of Keith David, so I muted him immediately.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that it starts snowing at the end of the movie.
No, it's not actual snow. It's the ash from the car burning.
Oh, but they made it look like snow.
Yeah, they didn't they?
Ugh, they suck.
You remember because it's Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard is
Right.
is like reacting to the snow, and then he sees
The car
burning
fire.
car, and
Yeah, that
then
the
he
guy was
throws like
murdered
a
in.
plank on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this movie sucks. I'm happy to be done talking about it now because it's off my mind.
Okay. Yep. We never have to talk about it again.
Absolutely.
I'll bring
We
it up
will.
like a couple episodes in
We'll
in
bring
the
it
future.
up.
Yeah, we'll bring it up.
it'll hold the distinction of our lowest rated for some time, unless we watch something that's
Three out of
worse.
20, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest, our scoring can be like very lenient to movies because
Oh,
poor, good,
absolutely.
and great are very, very vague when it
Like I
comes
said,
to.
if something's a 10 out of 10, like Darkman being a 9 out of 10, that's, according to our rating system, a good movie, almost.
Yeah.
Not quite, but almost a good movie.
Oh, you mean 9 out of 20?
Or 9 out of 20. Yeah, that's what I
I was
meant.
about to say I distinctly remember
Yeah,
not
yeah.
allowing you to give
Yeah.
Darkman a 9 out of
No, like
10.
a 9 out, not like a 9 out of 20 though. That's
9.
like us saying the movie's almost good.
I think the 1 to 4 out of 10 is a poor movie. A
Yeah.
4 to 6 is a good movie, and a 6 to 10 or 6 to 8 are great movies, and 8 to 10 are the best movies ever made.
Are you talking about out of 10?
Out of yes, out of 10
Yes.
specifically. Because
Yeah.
it's easier to do that than to just
Yeah.
keep going out of 20.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for our discussion of Crash.
You've got to sound more like defeatist about that.
I'm more. I was walking
That'll
after the
do it for
movie.
our discussion about Crash.
After watching this movie, Hannah was like, "Are you okay?" Because I just seemed like deflated. Like this movie like sucked all the wind out of me. I was just like dead afterwards.
Mikiah, a therapist, asked you, "Are
I
you doing
know,
okay
I
after
know.
watching this movie?" That's not a good sign.
I know. That's how bad this is. So, all right. So, given that the next episode that we do will be the first one to come out in October, this is where for me personally, for my 2 weeks that I pick in October, I'll be picking some nice little scary movies. And I wanted to do our first like real horror movie as just an all-time classic with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original, not one of the remakes. We're talking about the original, the actual.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that or
Okay.
not.
We're talking
Yeah,
the
early
original.
70s.
When did that come out? Like 73?
Yep.
Early
So
70s?
I
Okay.
that one I watched for the first time a few years ago, and I love slasher movies, even though I think most of them are bad. And my love of slasher movies, I feel like got turned upside down on me when I watched that movie because it is something else.
Hmm.
So
Yep, I haven't seen it.
1974.
So
And
we'll
it's only
see.
an hour and 23 minutes, so it's going to be the shortest one we
Oh yeah,
watched
that's
so
very
far.
short.
Yeah.
That's shorter than like most family movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's better for it too because it's tight. So, yeah, but yeah, that'll be our first Halloween spooky movie for the nice October season. And I'm excited to watch it again.
I'm excited to watch a better movie than Crash, hopefully.
Pretty much anything is. If you end up hating this movie, which, you might, it's a low budget 70s horror movie. Uh, I don't know if you're going to like this or not,
I don't know
honestly,
that I've ever
but
seen a low budget 70s horror movie, but
well, this is kind of the one to watch. Yeah,
yeah.
this is kind of the one to watch. So, Southern Gothic kind of helped define that genre of horror.
Southern
But
Gothic.
yeah.
How did they get my exact identity? God.
Kyle, I had no idea that you dyed your hair and have it swooped in front of your eyes this whole time.
Are you kidding me? I dye my hair Chuck from Farm Bureau Insurance.
Kyle's hair, by the way, is blonde, and I've never seen it anything less.
It's actually
than
not blonde.
Almost
It's
shaved.
very brown.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's a light brown.
Nah, it's a pretty dark brown now.
It is. No, I haven't seen you in a couple of years.
That's not true. You literally
He's
saw
played.
me.
Yeah. Well, either
You
way.
literally saw me before you went to go see Glass Onion.
Yeah, that's true. My failing memory aside.
My failing memory is such.
That'll
Well,
do
hopefully
it.
you'll use your failing memory to forget Crash.
Yes, hopefully. I probably won't though.
Don't worry, 50%
that-
of the podcast
yeah.
will be me bringing up Crash from now on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You
Well,
might
that'll
want to
do
stop
it.
this project.
Hey, I'm fine bringing up I almost said trash.
Trash.
I'm bringing up trash if you want to bring
Trash,
up trash.
yes. Don't worry, I'll
We just-
Photoshop this poster and then change it to trash.
Yes, absolutely. Just trash. Yeah, so yeah, go and watch Brokeback Mountain or Munich
or
or
Capote
Capote
or Good
or
Night, Good Luck.
or go, if you want to watch another race relation movie, watch American History X or Do the Right Thing or Blind Spotting. Literally,
Get
those are all
Out.
great
Get
movies.
Out. Yep.
Get Out's better than this in terms of that.
Yeah.
This is like, not to keep harping on it.
The
This
word
movie is like,
subtlety is 5 miles
yeah,
away from this movie.
this movie is like liberalism at its worst.
Yeah.
It is like the embodiment of things that like are wrong with like the liberal
This is
side of Hollywood.
No, this is basically what white people think racism looks like.
Right. Completely perspectiveless, like it's
Not
really
just perspectiveless, but they believe that all racism is out in your face, whereas most of it is either
it's
behind
not.
closed doors or
Yes.
very subtle.
Exactly. It's whispered. It's not shouted.
Like
the most harmful aspects of it are the things that prevent people from living their lives and getting basic things that they need. Not literally just calling somebody a slur in the middle of the street after bumping into their car. That's what this movie.
Like the
thinks
reason I keep
racism
bringing
is.
up Get Out is because Bradley Whitford's character, aside from the plot and everything like that, they are literally stealing black people's bodies from them to give to white people. But the subtle racism of I would have voted for Barack Obama for a third term
Right.
to a black man, as if that was warranted or as if that makes a difference just by you saying that, is the kind
this
of
movie,
thing that is what racism looks like in its most pure form.
This movie struck me as having been directed by a Bradley Whitford in Get Out type person. You know? That's what I felt like watching this movie. I was like, oh my gosh. So but that'll do it for this week's episode of Great American Movie Review.
Fortunately.
Be sure to fortunately, thank goodness it's over. Be sure to check us out every Thursday for new episodes. All right, I'm Mikiah.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you at the movies.
Bye.